Hello. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. I have had a crazy few days. I hope you have had good ones, had a good Valentine's Day, and that you felt loved. Um, we were just filled with different things and had some special company. If you remember a while back, I shared about the book. The Messy Life or My Messy Life, I forget her title, by Rachel Bain. And she came, she was doing a book signing in South Carolina and visited with us. And it was such a joy to have her and to be able to catch up with her. It's been a while. And so, yeah, and just, I had gone, if you followed the What's Your Story Wednesday, Carlene Ladd, one of the ladies I've met down here in South Carolina, she shared her testimony on What's Your Story Wednesday. Um, and she had invited me. One of her sons was in town and going to be singing, doing a night of singing at a local church. And so I went and went to hear him and with my friend Carlene. And it was so good, so good. And it made me miss my brother because the genre that night was Southern gospel, and that was definitely my brother's gospel music band. And so, yeah, it was just good, and it was really good for my soul. Actually, some of those songs I didn't know, but some of them I did, and just really appreciated that night of worship. Um, Before we get into the book for today, I did want to read Acts 17 2 through 7. And Paul went in, as was his custom, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the scriptures, explaining and proving that it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to raise from the dead, and saying, This Jesus, whom I proclaim to you, is the Christ. And some of them were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, and as did a great many of the devout Greeks, and not a few of the leading women. But the Jews were jealous, and taking some wicked men of the rabble, they formed a mob, set the city in an uproar, and attacked the house of Jason, seeking to bring them out to the crowd. And when they could not find them, they dragged Jason and some of the brothers before the city authorities, shouting, These men who have turned the world upside down have come here also, and Jason has received them, and they are all acting against the decrees of Caesar, saying that there's another king, Jesus. So I really should have read that at the beginning, but anyway, we're doing it today. Um, so, all right, so continuing with our little book, this part is created to belong. The Bible teaches that alienation from the God who made us and loved us is a tragic anomaly in God's intended world. Will Byers found himself in an anti world, a bizarre, abnormal place, foreign to human inclusion and experience. We're no different. Estrangement from our Father and his home is an unnatural condition that's out of step with what God wanted from the very beginning. Think about how the Bible's story begins. When God created humankind, he was acting intentionally. We know that God wasn't trying to fill some deficiency in himself. His perfection rules that out. Psalm 18:30 and Matthew 5:48. God wanted us to exist in order to enjoy us and to have us enjoy him in return. Because the Bible teaches that human life is God's creation, it's no surprise that God is portrayed as Father and all human beings as his children Acts 17:26-29. Adam was God's son, Luke 3:38. The people of Israel, Exodus 4:22, and Israel's king, Psalm 2:7, are described as God's sons. Those who embrace the gospel are the children of God, John 1:12. Think about that vocabulary. What's the context for words like father and children? Family. While this observation might seem elementary, the beginning of this thread tends to be hidden in plain sight for many Bible readers. The Bible tells us that before God created humanity, he already had children. The Bible calls them sons of God. We call them angels. They were God's supernatural family. They were here before humans. They shouted for joy as they watched God lay the foundations of the earth. Job 38:4-7. The fact that God already had a supernatural family provides some clarity for his motivation for creating us. God wanted a human family in addition to his heavenly family. The biblical story of Eden has God coming to earth with his celestial children. God speaks to them a few times in the story, Genesis 1:26 and Genesis 3:22. Tragically, one of them appeared to Eve in the form of a serpent to undermine God's wishes, Genesis 3:1-7, 2 Corinthians 11:3, and Revelation 12:9, and Revelation 12:20, verse 2. His deception brings death into the human world God created. Eden was where heaven came to earth. It was God's home on earth. When God created Adam and placed him in Eden, Genesis 2:15, God wanted his two families to live together with him. This means that just like God's heavenly children, humans were originally created as fit for the presence of God himself. God wanted his children with him. Creation was about family. So what do you think of when you think of family? There's many different types of families in our world. And let's see, how should I put this? The family of God. So if you consider like your church family, some of you might cringe a little at the word church because the church, capital C, at large, has made a big mess for itself. There's a lot that's coming out that has been hidden, and corruption is being exposed. The darkness is being exposed by the light. And that's happening in the smallest of churches to the biggest of churches. And I can imagine God is angry about that and hurt, right? Our heart breaks for the things that breaks his heart. And it's just terrible, all the things that have gone on in our world, our country and our world. And it is truly heartbreaking. I hope that as you are trying to process all that's being revealed, you are taking it in snippets and you're taking the matters to the Lord, and don't overconsume the news and the unfoldings of things. So anyway, but we do live in this time, I do believe, where Jesus is coming to divide. He's dividing. And so, anyway, so we'll have to see which side of the fence, so to speak, of the kingdom the good kingdom or Satan's kingdom, God's kingdom or Satan's kingdom, which side people land. And people have to choose. There is no middle, there's no lukewarm. It's this way or that. And so it's actually, when we talk about family, it can bring up a lot more topics, I guess, you know. It's our family of origin could have had a lot of hurt in its family line, and that was passed down to you. It could have, maybe you had a great home life. Maybe you had a home life that you know was meant for good, but because of unhealings, made things kind of harder at times. Uh, I know of a friend of mine, and she is actually, I, she's a little bit younger than me, but not by too much. And she actually grew up um, in the foster care system. And so that I hope she eventually has the courage to write her story. What it's been, what was it like for her to be in foster families, and it must have been so very hard. Now that we hear other stories, so a foster family sort of is meant to be a family where kids can come and live and be loved and nurtured and part of a family until they could be restored to their family of origin. And I know through our foster care journey, um, we saw a lot of corruption within the agencies that we worked with, and a lot of heartbreak in that. That's a story for another time, but nonetheless, we did our best with the kids that we had in our home. Um, so anyway, it's quite a tangent. But what is your family like? I want you to think about that. Do you have hurts within your own family line that need healed? Excuse me. Do you have mending to do? Do you have your family's story recorded? Those are all really important things. Okay, we'll do just a little bit further. Made like God to be with God. When we reflect on the Eden story this way, the details of the wider Genesis story come into focus. God had done a lot of creating by the time he got to Adam and Eve. Plants, insects, flying creatures, and land animals. As marvelous as they were, none of those creatures was capable of having a relationship with its maker. They could not share their thoughts with God. They could not express love and gratitude. That's what members of a family do, or are supposed to do. They form relationships that transcend biology. They connect intellectually and emotionally. They form companionship bonds. As spectacular as plants and animals are, they could not reciprocate in these ways. They weren't family. There was a clear solution to this problem. God needed to create something like himself in order to have what he really wanted. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Genesis 1:27. The image of God is an important concept in the Bible. Human beings, unlike other created things on earth, or any other created thing on earth, were created to be like God. This actually refers to a status and not a specific ability. Think of the image of God as a verb, and you'll get the idea. We were created to image God, to be his imagers, to represent him, or be his proxy to each other and to all the earth. Think about the implications of all that. Being created as imagers of God gives each of us a secure, profound identity. It was God's original desire that every human being would be his child and partner. That is how God looks at us. Imaging God also gives us purpose. We have a mission. Every person, no matter how small or weak or short lived, has some role to play in someone else's life. Often, what happens in invisible, unspectacular ways. That's actually the way that God works most of the time, with the and unseen hand. The Bible story opens with family. God desired to be the father of both his families and have them all be with him in his new, wonderful terrestrial home. But the desire of God's heart didn't last long. It was soon hopelessly broken by deception and rebellion. Death became the new overriding reality. We're going to stop there today. Tomorrow we'll pick up with healing what's broken and the right side up. And with that, that's my gift for you today.